Welcome back to the Dallas Prospect. We are here today for a post-game show. It's not the happy times. It's not the triumphant post-game show here today, but that's okay. That's okay because we're still going to talk about this game and why I'm not hitting the panic button if I'm Dallas. Now, obviously in this game, things did not go your way, did not go as you hoped. Dallas, as I predicted, did drop game one in Boston. And the Celtics, in really impressive fashion, did several things to the Mavericks that nobody's been able to do so far. They held them for one, under 90 points. Nobody had done that. The previous best was OKC holding Dallas to 95. They held Luka Doncic to a career playoff low, 1 assist. They had as many blocks as a team as Dallas had assists as a team. They held Kyrie Irving to like 31% from the field. What was he? 6 of 19 from the field. Just not a strong game from Kyrie at all here. And it seemed a little bit like he was pressing, maybe eager to try and come out and make some sort of statement with it and try to respond on a big stage. I think he still certainly can, but game one was not great for him. So I talked about a lot of things in yesterday's show previewing the game, areas where I said it's sort of strength versus strength. Something's got to give. The immovable object, the irresistible force, what's going to give? Boston, pretty much across the board, won that in game one. For one, Dallas's three-point shot, simply not there in game one. And we've seen that at times in this postseason. The difference is that when they haven't had the three-point shot dropping, Dallas has always been able to remain close because they've always had the fallback of points in the paint. That ability to get into the paint and get buckets, specifically to create that alley-oop connection, whether it's to Gafford, whether it's to Lively, whether it's to Derrick Jones Jr., whether it's to P.J. Washington, whether it's to, hell, Josh Green even. Like, these guys get in the paint and they make stuff happen. It did not go that way for them in game one. In fact, I don't think Dallas had a successful alley-oop connection in this game. And even on dunk attempts, I don't think they were good. I think they were like 3 of 7. Guys looked a bit uncomfortable there. I talked about Boston having a lot of two-way ability, and they blitzed Dallas in some unique ways. They took away the corner three. Dallas not able to connect consistently on that. Luka had 30 and 10 on 12 of 26 shooting. Other than the no assist thing, like 1 assist, he had an okay game by Luka standards. That was all right. The thing is, he also had a lot of bad defensive plays. I'm gonna be honest with you, he did. He had a 3-play stretch there that really busted this game open. I know Dallas ended up making a run at it, and we'll get into that and why that's one of those reasons. I'm not overly panicked right now, but he had a combination where he had a bad offensive possession, followed it up with a absolutely pointless, like, what are you doing double team that just allowed for a quick reversal the other way. And then Luka didn't even run after to like make up for to scramble himself for the chaos defensively he created for his own team. And it leads to a corner three. And then he gets ripped in the backcourt by Jaylen Brown, and that sets it up for a dunk. And it's just like, dude, what are you doing? I think he was frustrated because Boston was throwing very well-timed double teams at him, and he wasn't getting the help from his teammates that he needed. Not enough. Luka had, obviously, 30 points. The rest of the team combined for 59. If you had told me going into yesterday's game that Jaden Hardy was going to outscore Kyrie Irving, I think I would have had an aneurysm because I would have said, like, oh, something went dreadfully wrong here. And that's what happened, because Jaden Hardy had 13 points in 11 minutes compared to Kyrie in 37 minutes having 12. 0 of 5 from 3 for Kyrie, to the point where the Celtics weren't even trying to guard him shooting threes. I think Dallas played with fire here in a lot of ways, and they dug themselves yet another deep hole early in this game. It was 15-14 Dallas. Dallas made 7 of its first 10 shots. And then checking into the game, Kristaps Porzingis resurrected Bubble KP to be our destruction. Because in 11 minutes, KP had 18 points, 3 blocks, including a transition block on Josh Green that was just beautiful, and a couple deep threes. And now, to be fair, I think twice he got away with an offensive foul. Once he kneed Josh Green in the nuts, and the other time he hit Jaden Hardy, clocked him in the head, pulling up the shot. But even still, KP was hitting and doing so with lethal accuracy. And it just busted the game wide open. He was the sledgehammer that Dallas didn't seem to have an answer for, especially in that first half. The second half didn't really do a whole lot. KP didn't. But yeah, it just produced a situation where Dallas was kind of left scrambling, and they never really got to overcome it. They did make their run. In the third quarter, Dallas came out and blitzed them, and a 20-plus point deficit at, 24 at the half, 23, something like that. They cut it all the way to 8, or like midway through the third quarter, and you're like, oh, okay, here we go. This is the resilience here. They're finding a way. They're still not hitting threes. They're still not doing enough, but Kyrie helped spearhead a little bit of that. What little he did overall for the game, he got going there a lot in that third quarter. Luka's hitting plays, hitting his step backs and all that, and we're like, okay, we've cut it to single digits. Maybe something can happen here. And then Boston just got going. Dallas seemingly got stuck on 64 points, and Boston just got back into it. The adjustments they made to that Dallas run flipped it completely, because we went right in the blink of an eye. Now, here's the thing. That run by Dallas defensively was the Derek Lively impact. But here's the tipping point. Boston, how they counteracted that coming out of the timeout, they stopped settling for outside shots because they had gone cold from 3. To their credit, they adjusted. They didn't keep living by the 3, dying by the 3, as they had to let Dallas back into the game. They got super aggressive. And as I said, they have been they don't take a lot of shots in the paint, but they are very, very efficient when they do it. And the way they got this game back out of Dallas's hands is they started going into and through Derek Lively. I don't mean that in like the rookie just couldn't hang. No, I mean like literally like throwing their bodies into Derek Lively to the extent where Jaylen Brown literally like hits him straight up, Lively goes straight up and is like whipping the ball into his face, and still Lively is getting called for the foul. So you get Lively into deep foul trouble suddenly in the late third quarter. I think he had like 4 or 5 at that point, and you got to take him out. And so with that being the case, where do you find yourself? Back in purgatory, because purgatory here is Daniel Gafford in this series. He was unplayable, frankly, in the Oklahoma City series. Give credit to Gaff. In the last series in the Western Conference Finals, Lively was still unquestionably the better player, but Gafford made a lot of great plays, especially late in that series. Very, very good for Dallas. He deserved a lot of credit for that. I gave him a lot of credit for that. Hell, I went out of my way to make him the thumbnail for the Game 3 post-game show that I did, because I was like, dude, he needs his flowers here. He stepped in, and he made monster plays down the stretch to win that game, both offensively and defensively. So you found yourself in this situation where in that OKC series, he was like a minus 69 on the floor compared to a plus 71 for Lively. Last night, if that's any indicator, Gafford's going to be that this final series is going to be that OKC series for Gafford on steroids, borderline unplayable. It's a damn good thing you have Maxi Kleber back, because defensively, I don't know that you can play Gafford right now, and you have to get creative with that. The good news is you do have, I think, 3 days before the next game, so you have some extra time to make adjustments and to try and implement what you want to do. But Gafford, man, when Lively finally got forced off the floor because of the foul trouble, Boston took what was only an 8-point edge and stretched it right back to 21, because as soon as Gafford took over, it was like boom, 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 like 3 threes out of nowhere effectively. just getting right to you, getting right into the heart of the defense, kicking it out, and just burying you. And it was like a landslide. And all of a sudden, all that work you did to climb out of that hole, almost all the way out of that hole, instead, you're back almost as deep as you were before. And it's just like, that was it. That was the game. Dallas had their chance, started to mount the comeback, got within distance that they could smell it, to being like, okay, back to an even playing field. We're starting to feel it, starting to vibe. And then Boston found a way, more than anybody else has in the playoffs thus far against Lively, other than Minnesota literally kneeing him in the back of the head, of getting him out of the game. And once he's out of the game, the Dallas defense is just different. And it's still a good defense, but when you get Lively out of the game, Dallas' defense goes from elite to just good. And Gafford is being victimized by these matchups. Boston did a brilliant job in game one of attacking every mismatch on the floor. Teams have tested Doncic every round defensively, but Boston really went at him. They threw some unique things at him. A couple times caught him sleeping. Jaylen Brown looks like he's going to be a problem with what he's able to bring offensively and defensively to the table. I will say this, though. As much as we talk about the storyline and people anointing like faces of the league and all of that, dude, Jason Tatum, you take him off this team, this is still a finals team for the Celtics. They're a super team. The Celtics were up 21 in this game, late third quarter, and the dude was sitting on 13 points. That's not to say that he wasn't impacting the game in some other places, but he is not the dude for them a lot of times. Like, they are a very balanced punch with him and Brown was the much bigger problem here for Dallas. So as I was watching all that unfold, I was just like, dude, show me a single game, regular season, let alone postseason, where Dallas is up 21 and Luka has barely double-digit points. It doesn't exist. It doesn't happen. Even if it's a Kyrie game, you never have those circumstances. So absolutely incredible that people want to try and put this into like this kind of conversation. It's like, no, they've got a super team that doesn't even need him. That's not to say like, oh, he should be embarrassed by that or anything. That's just to say like, don't act like these are the same supporting casts. Like this is the same matchup. This is not just as simple as Luka versus Tatum. It's not. Luka had to do all the heavy lifting. Tatum didn't have to do hardly anything in this game because the rest of his team was hitting. The game for Boston was won by Jaylen Brown and by first half Kristaps Porzingis. That's it. So as I look through this box score here, Luka 4 of 12 from 3. Again, free throws concerning. 2 of 5 at the line. He did have a couple steals, but was a minus 10 overall. He also had 4 turnovers. I think 2 of them were really bad. Kyrie, 12 points, 3 boards, 2 assists, 6 of 19, 0 of 5 from 3, minus 19. He was getting victimized on the defensive end. PJ Washington, 14 and 8. He was 5 of 11, so like 14 and 8 from PJ Washington, that's respectable. 5 at 11, not great. 0 of 3 from 3, not great. But you'll take what you can get there. Derek Jones had a rough game. He was 5.6 boards, 2 of 9 from the field. Not great. He did eventually hit a 3. Gafford 8 and 3 in 14 minutes. The fact he only got 14 minutes. Lively does play 18 minutes, but he's held to 2-5, and he also had an assist. No blocks for him. Just incredible how Boston was able to attack. The one shining light for Dallas off the bench, really. Again, Lively gets a lot of credit for the defensive disruption he caused, but Jaden Hardy did have 13 points in 11 minutes. He did get some minutes early on. I thought he was a little bit too out of control. He had a couple times early in the game when this was getting away from Dallas where he got the ball and just beelined to the rim, like into a way somebody put it on Twitter that I liked was they basically called it like a suicide dive where he's slashing into the paint against 3 defenders. Like, bro, you're not Kyrie. You're very crafty. You're good, but like you're not in that category right now, and that's 2 bad possessions in a row to be going in there and just flipping something up. Like, we need better possessions out of you. So that was a concern. Tim Hardaway Jr., meanwhile, 8 minutes, 0 of 2. Nothing much going for Dallas there. overall, Boston shot 48% from the field, 38% from three. So it's not like they were lights out shooting. The difference is that they handled you. In terms of assists, Boston had 23. Dallas ended up with 9. But again, Boston also had 9 blocks, so that erases you pretty quick. Dallas only had 1. They're a much better rim protection team than that. But Boston, when opponents make 16 or more threes against Dallas this year in the playoffs, Dallas's record is not good. Boston usually makes somewhere between 13 and 14 in a game. Dallas just didn't do a good enough job closing out on it. And part of it was Luka being out of position defensively a few times that we saw. Part of it was the rotations being just a tick slow, I felt like. Those kind of things you can clean up, and that's one of the reasons I'm not panicking. I don't know that KP is going to have another game like this, because this was just KP being unconscious in this first half. And we saw by the second half, he really came back down to earth, because I think he ended up with only 2 points in the second half. And it was like with 2 minutes left in the third quarter, he missed a 3, Boston got the offensive rebound, and then he got a slashing to the basket pass for a dunk. That was his only bucket in the second half. So I don't know that KP is going to have another game like that. I really hope Kyrie is not going to have another game like that. 31.6% from the field for him is not going to cut it. But man, when you look at it, you do say Kyrie in his last 11 games against the Celtics is 0 of 11. If people want to make it a bigger thing and say, like, how about since he stomped on Lucky? He's 1 of 11 since then. But it's not been good for him. And Boston's balanced attack I kept talking about, their two-way guys, they were lights out from 3. They set an NBA Finals record with 7 players making multiple 3-point field goals. That was Jason Tatum with 3, Derek White with 3, Jaylen Brown with 2, KP with 2, Drew Holiday with 2, Al Horford with 2, and Sam Hauser with 2. That's going to stretch you thin. And we know that Boston loves that 3-point shot, but Dallas just has to do a better job contesting. They have to find a way to scramble there. So overall, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, like, Dallas has a lot of adjustments that they need to make. And I don't have a ready answer I'm not an X's and O's guy. I don't have a ready-made answer for you to tell you, like, this is how they adjust. Other than they were out of position defensively a couple times. Luka made some very impulsive decisions when he was breaking basically from his defensive assignment, almost like a frustration play, trying to force a double team to create a turnover, pressing way too much, putting his teammates in a bad spot where it leads to it just skipping around and a wide open 3 on the corner because of a mismatch that Luka created. Things like that are going to doom you every time. Boston wins the rebounding battle 47-43. I was actually shocked. The offensive boards were even at 10 apiece. It felt like Boston really took that away from Dallas. And Dallas does win the steals category for whatever that's worth, 8-6. But man, this was a tough one for the Mavericks. I did predict Boston would win. If you watched my stream yesterday, I predicted Boston would win Game 1. And that does spell some concern, because if you look at Boston's all-time franchise record, when they win Game 1 of the finals, they have won 13 of the 15 times. So Boston winning Game 1, usually a very strong indicator for them historically. That is something Dallas is going to have to kind of keep an eye on here. And the fact that they win this one, that's 87%. But the fact that they win this one like they did, the fact Dallas made a run does give me some hope, tells me that they can pull back into this. And I especially think, we've seen games where that 3-point shot hasn't been there. And more often than not, it does come around. We haven't really seen an extended series where those role players couldn't hit. Usually Dallas has not registered back-to-back losses in the playoffs yet this year. Obviously, the only time under Kidd that happened was the 2022 Western Conference Finals against the Warriors. You lost the first 3 games there before getting your 1 to avoid the sweep, the gentleman's sweep, effectively. That was the only time you've avoided that previously, or where you've ended up in that situation previously. So we'll see what they're able to do. I do think there are adjustments that can be made. A lot of it's just attention to detail. Part of it is they usually do a good job creating better looks for themselves, that their role players step up and cash in those shots. And if you're not just getting completely blitzed and outclassed from three, okay, now you got to find a way to create those baskets inside. I don't know what the play is, but Minnesota threw every coverage they could at Luka and to a lesser extent Kyrie, but especially Luka, and he was just picking them apart, having fun with it. Dallas needs to figure out how to adjust for that again here, because Boston threw some more unique stuff at him. Luka's basketball IQ, I tend to assume he's going to adjust well to that, but there are certain elements here that I'm just like, I don't know what your answer is for that, you know? Jaylen Brown's the first Celtics player to have 20 points, 3 blocks, 3 steals in a playoff game since Kevin Garnett in 2012. That was when Boston fell in 7 to the Lakers. Kevin Garnett 2012. That doesn't sound right. It just has a playoff game, not a finals game. Excuse me. Yeah, because it was 2010, I believe. Yeah. 2010 was the last Laker title before Dallas swept them and ended the Phil Jackson era. So 2012 was the year after that. Garnett put that up in a postseason game. So pretty impressive statement from Boston to open. I thought they would win the game. I'm not even shocked by the discrepancy, because if you look at the 3 blowout losses for Dallas in this postseason, they're all 3 in game 1. My voice cracked. All 3 in game 1. And somehow this is the smallest discrepancy between the two, or between the 3. It's the smallest margin of loss of those 3. And Dallas has always bounced back. So I do kind of look at this and say, yeah, they'll have answers. Jason Kidd's only won game 1 once as a Mavs head coach, and his adjustments have always been very good after that. The only time that we really had no answer was, again, that Warriors series, in which you looked at it and you were just like, yeah, that's just, you don't have, like, your team is held together by paper clips, chewing gum, scotch tape, whatever, and you're going up against a stacked team of veterans with an elite level coach. Like, you're just not going to have the horses to run the race. I think Dallas has the horses in this case that can run the race, but they have to play excellent basketball. Whether you lost game 1 by 80 or 8 or 1, it's still just 0-1 in the series. I'm not panicking. I'm not looking at this and saying, how can Dallas answer the call? I think there's several things they can do. Part of it just comes down to making shots, adjusting how you're handling some of your spacing, and just attention to detail. So I look at all of that and I say, there's a long way to go in this series. I have no idea if Dallas is going to be able to overcome this. The Boston's accolades are what they are. And the best thing I was pointing to coming into this was that they didn't have to be tested all postseason. They didn't have any hard adversity they had to go through. But I will say, it's interesting to me that, at least in terms of this performance, this to me felt like Boston really amped up. Like they were on their game. They were really fired up. They weren't playing around with their food kind of like they did with Indiana. But even still, I don't know that I expect a whole lot of performances from KP, for instance. So as I look through this, KP had 20 off the bench. Obviously, that was huge. I think it was only the second time in his career he's come off the bench, by the way. Hauser had 8. But other than that, you just got a couple guys with 2. Boston starting 5 did all the work. 16 out of Tatum, 22 out of Brown, 15 out of White, 12 out of Holiday, 10 out of Horford. And then KP off the bench with 20. If KP comes back down from that stratosphere, then, and you know, it's the first time he's played in a game since what? The game that wasn't the first round, right? Like, that's pretty impressive for him. And he had all the extra motivation in the world. I get it. But I don't look at this and say, like, oh, did KP outplay Luka? He definitely was the turning point of this game. And I think Luka had his run, and at times he was going at KP and making some things happen, even on the defensive end, picking his pocket at one point. But I still kind of look at it and say, like, the difference is one of these guys has a lot of help. And yeah, when he's able to be there and just be like the extra weapon in your arsenal that you can just throw out there for a little bit and let him wreak havoc, and then he can go back to being a non-factor the rest of the game, but it's not going to matter. That's a hell of a luxury when one guy's got to lift all the weight, all the load, take on all of that. And the other guy's just like, hey, man, I just had to have like 11 electric minutes, and I just had to kick up my feet and kind of coast. It's impressive. KP, 21 minutes played. So in the first half, he had 18 minutes. I think it was 18 minutes, 18 points. He barely played in the second half, but had the impact he had. So kudos to him. We'll see. I'm trying to think of any closing thoughts, anything like that I want to round back to. I guess for Dallas, I don't know that I would expect a whole series of this for Kyrie. I got to think Kyrie is going to find something. He's going to find some sort of reserve, some sort of motivation, at least not to be as bad, even if he can't be as good as he has been previously. But that's what Dallas needs. If you get that and one or two guys able to step up and make some solid plays for you, then maybe you got something. Maybe you're able to make some noise. I'm not betting against the team, but at the same time, I recognize, like, okay, Boston is who I thought they were. I said before the Western Conference Finals, Innie and I, when we first talked about that, we were like, though, we weren't excited about the prospect of Minnesota, but the more we talked through it, the more we kind of thought, like, no, actually, I kind of think Dallas can go with them. I think they can get this. Have not had that feeling with Boston. The more I've talked through it, the more I've kind of remained at that, like, I think it's 6 or 7 game series. The question is it Dallas or is it Boston? The head says Boston, the heart says Dallas, and that's where I'm sticking. I'm still taking Mavericks in 7, and I fully admit a lot of that's want, but I think this team has some want, and if they got the gas in the tank, I am not quitting on them. So let me see, anything in the comments I want to touch on here before wrapping this up. Let's see. Yeah, no, definitely no excuses. Let's see. What's good, Cowboy X Factor? Next game is everything. And you know what? I'm just sicko enough that I think that Dallas can get game 2 and that they will get game 2. They've been better on the road than they've been at home this postseason. And I think that's going to come through, that dealing with that adversity. My problem with Cowboy X Factor mentions rolling Omax out there to see what he can do in terms of adjustments. My problem is the dude barely played in the regular season. He's a rookie. He is a unique player who I think is going to be special. But man, that's like a break glass in case of emergency, like catastrophic emergency sort of thing. I just don't anticipate Omax getting burned here. I don't know. He's been on top of everything. He's been out for an extended period because of an ankle sprain. Yes, he's available now, but I'm just not expecting to run him out on this stage in this moment with as little seasoning as he's had on the main roster and expect it to be like a significant thing. Now, if we're talking like, hey, if we were year 2 or year 3 of his development, how would I feel about that? I'd say, hell yes, you need him out there. But right now with where he's at, I just would be shocked if that was an adjustment Dallas made. Maybe they got to reach to the end of the bench just to try and find something if this series starts to get away from them, if they lose game 2 and then game 3 is starting to look rough. But I just don't foresee that happening right now. Kafka says, KP came on the court and totally changed the game's atmosphere. Made it difficult for the Mavs defense, too. Yeah, no, he did. Again, it was 15-14 when KP checked into the game, and he almost immediately started blitzing you, hitting threes, hitting pull-up jumpers. Again, he got away with a couple offensive fouls, I thought, on Josh Green and Jaden Hardy. But Dallas, for some reason, guarding him aggressive and tight with smaller defenders. I don't know that I love that. Now, I'll say Lively did have some problems with KP. KP blew right by him a couple of times, which is a little surprising because I've seen Lively with the horizontal quickness to stay in front of wings pretty well. So when KP got around him, I was like, oh, shit. I don't know if Lively was just surprised by the speed, like he didn't anticipate KP being able to get around him, and then he did. But I think Lively's going to have to make some adjustments on how he plays KP for sure. Yeah, and then KP. Dallas, again, when Josh Green tried to dunk in transition, I actually hated that, and I saw it coming. because he's going on the fast break, and I'm like, okay, you're out ahead, but KP is right on you. I don't know that I challenge KP at the rim in transition. In that situation, I just don't know. It's one thing if he's having to come from an awkward angle or turning at the last moment. No, he had a beeline on you. He was meeting you at the point. That to me felt like he either should have pulled that out and saved that possession, or he should have tried to go into his body to draw the contact and see if he could get to the line. In that moment, a dunk, yeah, if you nail the dunk, if you throw it down, that does shift the momentum a little bit. It kind of hushes just a little bit the Boston crowd. But instead, you played into the hands to blow the roof off the place even louder because they're already going on a run. And then Dallas gets a scrambling turnover, and you're like, oh, damn. And Boston's crowd erupts because all of a sudden their momentum goes even more in their favor. So I think Dallas played recklessly into their hands. As KP was going on his run, you had Hardy flying at the basket out of control a couple of times, going into triple coverage where it makes no sense to go in at the basket at that point. Then you got the fast break attempt by Green trying to go for the poster, and I just didn't like any of that. I thought that was ill-advised, and the fact that it was happening amid the KP flurry offensively was disastrous for them. So, and honestly, that's somewhere where Kidd needs to intervene. I think Kidd holds on to his timeouts too long. I've talked about that numerous times, and I felt like that was one of them. He waited until things were really cooking for Boston when they had already pushed that lead, not just taken the lead, but pushed it to like 15, 16 points before making any sort of like timeout. And then they just continue to play largely into the same hands. It's like they're just like, okay, collect our breaths here, gather ourselves, let's go get them. It's like, no, you need to make adjustments right now. They're cooking you right now. And it didn't happen, so it took a while. Adjustments finally came at halftime. You made your run, but then once they were able to neutralize Lively by throwing their bodies into him and getting home whistles to get him in foul trouble and take him out of the equation for a bit, that's when Gafford came back in, and it just completely seesawed back away from you for the final time. Yeah, Derrick Jones Jr. wasn't solid in that game. There wasn't a lot, honestly, for Dallas that I can look at and say, like, that's a bright spot. You might look at Luka's 30 and 10 and some of the shots he hit and say, like, dude, Kyrie hit a couple phenomenal shots. The problem is he was 6 of 19 and looked damn out of control at times, like dribbling the ball off his foot, hitting the side of the backboard on a corner three, being left wide open on an island to shoot threes multiple times and missing. Like, it was bad. Like, you look all around, and even if you're bright spots, if you're going to look to Luka and say, like, oh yeah, Luka, that was a nice kind of performance or something, you're still like, dude, but if you actually look at what he did defensively, how he was putting his team out of position, how he was playing out of position, some of the empty possessions he was putting together offensively, you kind of look at it and say, like, I thought multiple times Luka was getting into the teeth of the defense and kicking out, like trying to get his teammates going. Hey, commendable, except nobody's hitting. And if nobody's hitting, you being there in the teeth of the defense is the best damn play. That's been a criticism of mine that I've had of Luka at times this postseason. Even in the T-Wolves series, I was saying the same thing. Like, that's not the play you need to make right now. I get what you're trying to do. Generally, that is the right play. But my feeling is you need to close this now. Any other comments here as I wrap this up? I don't think I'm overreacting to the loss. I always felt like this was going to be a really tough series, and that's why even in picking the Mavericks, I picked it in 7. So we'll see. I even picked Boston taking game 1. I thought that was going to be the case. The question is, how does Dallas counter? What adjustments do they make? How do they counter? And can they come back from this? I think they can. I think they will. But they got to play excellent basketball. And I said they needed 2 weeks of excellent basketball. Well, doesn't mean every game is going to be excellent, but last night was not excellent. Fortunately, they need 4. You got 2 more times you can afford to let that happen. So we'll see where they go from here. But that's it for my time, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to like the video, drop a comment below, subscribe to the Dallas Prospect, and until next time, remember, every legend was once a